Thank you to all Black women that came here tonight. Thank you, women of color, for being here tonight. Thank you, Indigenous women, for being here tonight. We want to take a moment of pause to give thanks and reverence for all of your sacrifices that you have given to get us here to this moment in time. As Aurora and I gather on the traditional land of the Lenape peoples, we want to acknowledge the original sin of our country, the genocide and forced removal of its indigenous people, the colonizing of their lands, and the erasure and invisibility of indigenous people present day.
Welcome. Welcome to my Black sisters, to my IPOC sisters. Welcome. It is with so much gratitude and my sincerest bow for all that you have done, for the centuries of work, for all that you have sacrificed, and the tremendous love that you have given to get us to this moment of awakening, this moment of sacred rebellion. We hear you, we see you, we love you. And tonight, we invite you to rest. To rest. There is no work for you to do on this call. You have done tenfold. You have shared both quietly and loudly what you need from white women, what you need white women to see, what you need white women to hear, what you need white women to do. So we thank you and we ask you to rest. Additionally, we welcome the white women. Welcome to the opt-in community. We've been waiting for you. We've been waiting. So before we begin this evening, we'd like to set our intention. And if it is comfortable for you, we invite you to close your eyes. Take the 3 deepest breaths that you've taken yet today. And for tonight, we call in our ancestors. We call in our angels. And we call in our highest self. Tonight, we opt in to break our hearts open, to transform the shame of our indifference towards the suffering of Black and IPOC lives. We opt in to the discomfort and the gut-wrenching journey of transformation. We opt in to the grit and the endurance that is required and is necessary to change our world minute by minute. Tonight, we opt in the words of Audre Lorde, to not use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. Tonight, we opt in together to travel to the place we have never been, but where we all come from. Tonight, we remember the universal law that all is one. And now, from this place, please open your eyes. And we begin. My name is Aurora Archer, and I'm an Afro-Latina, and my pronouns are she and her.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Croce Sorg, and I am white, and my pronouns are she and her. And as we say on our podcast, we are two best friends, and together we are the opt-in. But what's true tonight and going forward is that all of us together as one, we are the opt-in.
And now we invite this community together. We'd love for all of you to meet each other. And like we said, this is a unique space where we speak the language of the heart. And we would like for you to introduce yourselves by taking one hand, if that is accessible to you, and leverage your hand to show us your feelings. So with this hand and using your facial expressions, you may share with us, are you feeling in this moment as you enter this time with us today? Sadness? Are you feeling anger? Are you feeling shame? And with your other hand, we ask you to do two things. Place yourself in the gallery view and then click over. Click over as you share your expression and witness each other. Witness your feelings. Witness your faces. Witness each other tonight. You are not alone. And as we witness each other in fellow community, you are opting in to transform.
So we see some shame, some sadness, some rage,
Hope,
hope, love.
not knowing,
Mm-hmm.
eyes open, shock. This community, your feelings, owning and feeling your feelings, and being connected to your feelings is the pathway to your humanity.
So now that we all got a chance to briefly connect with one another, we just thought it was a good time to just tell the quick story of how this all began. Aurora and I have known each other for 10 years, but truth be told, in the very beginning, I didn't know her very well, and I was in awe of her. She was this gorgeous corporate badass, and she would like whisk her magical aura into the room, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to be her friend. And she was working all the time, always. So I didn't get to be with her as much as I would have liked, but 4 years ago, our paths started to overlap more and more, and I just fell in love.
I loved Kelly the minute I met her. She is wicked funny, not one of the traits I have. She's an amazing mother. She is just a joy to be around. And I loved every minute of hanging out with her. We danced, we laughed. And one of the things I most admire about Kelly is her dogged curiosity. But I often left our interactions together feeling like that they only went so deep, that I was saying things that, quite frankly, she didn't connect with. And she didn't connect with in the same way that I know I experienced a level of connection with my Black and brown girlfriends.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about race, I always thought we were talking about those white people over there.
And we weren't.
We weren't.
We weren't. So there was a book that came out that was called White Fragility. And it laid out so clearly what I had been feeling what so many of us had been feeling as brown and Black people. And so I bought a copy of this book. I actually bought 25 copies, but I bought a copy of the book and I gifted it to Kelly. And I gifted it to Kelly without shame, without judgment, but I gifted it to her because I loved her and I needed her to do better. I needed her to do better as a white woman, and I needed her to do better as my friend.
Oh, that book rocked my world. I was oozing with shame the whole time I was reading it. I felt like I was Cersei in Game of Thrones, where she's walking naked through the town and people are throwing rotten tomatoes at her. And I understand that I then got the message from a white woman, all of the problems that Black women have been talking about, reading, writing books about, teaching about for centuries. She was in my head and she didn't let me hide from anything. And I realized that the conversations Aurora was trying to have with me, I wasn't capable of. And I was just shallow and staying on the surface. And those other white people I thought we were talking about, I realized very quickly we were talking about me. And we were talking about my friends. And we were talking about my family. And I finished the book and I went into yoga the next day and saw her. And I was like, holy shit, I am so sorry. This is not your job. I will do better. And I now look back and sorry is such a gross understatement. I just began to see my whiteness more and more. And it took me a little bit of time. I had a deep dive, but everything in my life I realized was shaped by being white. And as our friendship deepened and it got honed by really messy and uncomfortable conversations and moments that happen still to this present moment and will continue to, we weren't just talking about our lives, but we were talking about why our lives were what they were. And the experience of my friendship with Aurora was now rooted in somewhat of a reality that we shared. I was not in reality before. And now Aurora could say things to me and I could understand them. And if I couldn't understand them, or if I felt these defenses creeping up or whatever, that I actually could sit with them and sit with some of the discomfort. Sometimes I didn't react very well, but
No.
I learned to receive them. And I have to just tell you that Aurora's friendship has changed my life. I finally feel like I'm coming alive. Maybe Aurora's seeing what's possible. I don't know. I can't speak for you. Sometimes I can't believe she actually wants to be my friend. And we wanted to share this with everybody else. So we started a podcast and the opt-in community was born. Because what if we could have these conversations without shame, but with a deep level of accountability? What does that look like and what could happen? And so for the last 2 years, we've been having these conversations together and with really important, soulful, amazing, transformative teachers to deep dive into our psyche, our society, just to see how deep racism is rooted into the fabric of our lives. And when I say that, into the fabric of my life, Aurora already knew this. So we created 2 amazing seasons that in my heart are a love letter to my friends and family that we do better. And so while we're working on our 3rd season, a series of rapid fire events have occurred, and they spotlighted the reality of the differences between Black and brown lives and my own. A reality that Black and brown people have always known and have been trying to tell us. It's the reason why most of us are on the call tonight. We heard you, and we've been there. We've now seen the extreme inequities in the systems that are supposed to be serving all of us, but they're really just serving white people. Again, this has always been known to people of color, but it was just becoming known to us when we see the pandemic showed us that white people that the healthcare system was failing Black and brown people. They were dying at rates exponentially. They are dying at rates exponentially higher than white people. And add on weathering due to generational trauma and oppression. And Black people were at even higher risk of COVID death. Then you add in the salary and wage gap in this country that systematically favors white people, this comes to light, and yet people of color make up the majority of essential workers, which causes them to be more likely to be exposed to the deadly virus. And then the government's financial response to the pandemic systematically excluded Black and brown people, and the federal financial support disproportionately went to white people. And then a young Black man who was doing nothing more than going for a run was hunted down by 3 white men, killed in broad daylight. And while that in itself is profoundly inhumane, we learned that Breonna Taylor was shot dead by police while sleeping in her home. And the truth about these killings is horrific enough. But on top of that, the stories remained unknown to us white folks for 2 months, and only after a videotape was leaked. There are so many more names and stories we never knew about. And then, within 3 days of one another, we witnessed the brutal murder of George Floyd by a police officer as 3 cops stood by indifferently or defiantly. And we watch as Amy Cooper weaponizes her whiteness and calls the police on Christian Cooper when he requests that she leash her dog in a well-marked, leash-required area of Central Park. We've only just started paying attention to Amy Cooper. We know there are a lot of Amy Coopers out there, and there have been a lot of Amy Coopers in history. There are many more women who have weaponized their whiteness that we're not talking about today, but all of them got us here. We can't remember the names of all of them acting out of fear, but we do remember the white woman that called the police when Black people were having a barbecue. We remember the white woman calling the police when the young Black girl was selling water bottles. We don't even know their names because until this moment, they've been separate from us. But we are Amy Cooper. And when we remain unconscious and indifferent, we are dangerous and we are lethal. I must personally transform. We must all personally transform, and the accountability of that change has been laid on our doorstep.
And so tonight we gather here in community to sit in accountability, to do the work. And if there's something that Kelly and I have learned from our experiences, from our friendship, from doing our own individual work, is that any change first starts at a personal level. It starts with personal transformation. And trust me, it is messy. It's messy, it's not pretty at times, but it's heart-centered. And it's uncomfortable. It's quite uncomfortable. And we also believe that the way we support and create this personal transformation may feel really different to many of you. It may feel different from other spaces or communities that you participate or belong in, and that's okay. Because we need all the guides, we need all the teachers, we need all the manuscripts, all the workshops, all the seminars, all the things are needed at this moment. But what we also know is that anchoring in personal accountability is critical. And that personal accountability begins with you. So for the next 45 minutes, we're going to offer a framework that includes 5 elements that mutually reinforce themselves so that you can create your personal recipe of transformation. So what are the 5 elements? The first one is motivation. Why are you doing this? You are likely getting a lot of messages about why you should be doing this. And if you have to pull one of those for the moment because you're unclear, that's okay. But we firmly believe that each of you has to find that why. Secondly, you have to believe it's possible. Hope is what anchors us to come back and dig deeper because we believe that the change is possible. The third element of the transformation, we got to be solving the right problem. We didn't get to 2020 where so many people, so many of you are confused, are hearing it really for the first time. And that's clarity that we have not all been on the same page. We have not all been in the same reality in articulating what is the problem that we're solving for. The fourth is about creating the habits and the structures so that it becomes habitual, that it is consistent, and that it is ingrained into the way that you are operating. And the fifth, and not least, is the building and being part of a community. And tonight, you're opting in to this community. All of those 5 elements and your personal transformation is critical. It's critical for your humanity. It's critical for our collective humanity.
So Aurora just gave an overview, but I want to let anybody know if you want to grab a piece of paper, a journal, a pen, you're welcome to do that. You're welcome to take notes. The book was White Fragility for whoever asked. So let's start with motivation. Why am I doing this? We asked you your feelings in the beginning, and we just want to point out that your feelings, and we listed them in the chat as well, your feelings are a great message. Our feelings are a great message to us, and they can be nurtured into our motivation. And motivation is essential because we know as white people, we are motivated for a while, and then it wanes, and then we opt out. And our partner, actually, Colleen and Aurora and I had this uncomfortable conversation yesterday about white women's motivation to do this work. And then we were like, the fact that we just had a conversation about the motivation that they might need to think about is disturbing in and of itself. So just sit with that a moment. So there's 2 main reasons for motivation. It's personal and it's pain. So it's personal in that it's an inside job. I can't want your motivation for you. I have to want it for myself. I can't even want it just for Aurora and her kids. It has to come from an even deeper place than that. My own personal motivation is key because then I'm less likely to fall back into being indifferent. And indifference is the death of transformation. Second is pain. One of the greatest sources of our motivation is our pain. When something's so uncomfortable, we don't want to be there anymore, and we need to figure out a way to change to get out of it. But the problem is that instead of me learning how to sit with my pain, I was taught to get rid of it, and I learned and was conditioned from everything how to get rid of it in so many other ways. I would drink it, shop it, scroll it. I still do these things sometimes. Numb it, blame it on other people, consume it, distract myself from it, or even take action. I would do anything but feel my feels. And the good news is that motivation grows and it's nourishing. And I will admit that my motivation started small. The truth is, I had a best friend, and I read the book she gave me, and my world turned upside down. I thought I was a good person. Guess what? I actually realized I was a shitty person and a shitty friend. And I wasn't about to turn my back on Aurora, so I had to figure it out. And I felt terrible. I felt terrible about myself. I was like oozing self-hate. However, my motivation was that I wanted to transform myself from that shitty person that I was based on what I just read in White Fragility. My motivation was the pain of wanting to be a better human being. But my motivation did grow. It grew to, wow, everything's fucked up. To Black Lives Matter. To we need to work out how we can have a better world. And so on and so forth. But the points I want you to remember about motivation are you have to want it. I have to want it. I have to feel my pain. and my motivation will grow.
And that we're starting from different places.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting from different places. And as a Black woman, I will honestly, candidly share with all of you. It was one of the biggest aha moments because my motivation and Kelly's motivation is starting from a very radically different place because of the truth of our realities. And so tonight, we'd love for you to open up the chat box. We'd love for you to take a breath and breathe into your feelings and share with us, what is your motivation? What are you opting in as your motivation for change?
And if your motivation's not top of mind, that's okay. The point is, stay there. It's a good place to be. We're seeing humanity, to be a better human, love and courage, to be an ally, future, deep pain, the right thing to do, be a better person, equity, save Black lives, better future, humanity, my children, to connect, honoring, justice, peace, my daughter, community, my friends, the future, justice, my students.
My children,
Mm-hmm. To do better, my mom,
inner growth.
horror, love, oneness, justice. This is so beautiful. Accountability, fairness.
And so as folks share that, I want to share something that's very honest. My motivation is very clear. I do not want any more harm or death to come upon Black and brown bodies. I am crystal clear on that. And I have recently understood that that may not be where you are. And that's why we say that the motivation and doing the work is so critical. Because we are living in two radically different worlds. And the motivation to that point continues to be a journey for Kelly.
Yes. So you can bask in the power of all the motivation in the chat from this community and what it can do. Because when we lose motivation, remember what each other has said as well.
Because that becomes the anchor that you will continue to come back to. And it's also the anchor that will propel your growth and transformation.
You can also see that we're much more similar than we are dissimilar in our answers.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So now we'll move into what we believe, what we'd like to share is the second element of personal transformation, and that is hope. Because motivation isn't enough. We didn't get to 2020 and be exactly in this moment if we all believed that we could change this world. I think some of us believed it. I think some of us were oblivious to it. And some of us are beginning to believe it. But you have to believe that it's possible because it's big, guys. I've been hoping for it my entire life. Brown, Black, Indigenous people have been hoping for this for centuries. And it feels daunting, but it's so critical to believe because it will refortify you. And when you believe, you become accomplices in the transformation. Every loss, every despair, every sacrifice has propelled my belief that you can do this. And because my hope is that one day you will care as fiercely as I do in this moment for all of us. That's what I believe.
I don't have to tell you that Aurora is one of the greatest models of hope and grace in my life. And I wish a friend like her for each of you. I just want to be the, devil's advocate that despair is not for us. For us white women, we've been asleep for way too long. Black and brown women have been conjuring hope since the dawn of the USA. Let's look to them as models. They model grace and hope we white people can't yet fathom. Black women are masters at it. And if they can do it, we can cultivate hope too. So, in order to sit with the pain that motivates us, while also still being hopeful, we invite our friend Erica to lead us in a guided meditation.
Come into a comfortable seated position, sitting tall in your spine. Allow your shoulders to relax and just take a deep breath in and an exhale through your mouth. Allow your hands to gently rest in a relaxed position. Bring your eyes either gazing at a point or gently close your eyes if that's comfortable with you. Take a moment and turn within your body. Notice any feelings you may be experiencing in this very moment. Notice any emotions that may be present for you. And see if you can expand your awareness to encompass any feelings, emotions, or sensations that may even feel contrary to one another, such as perhaps you're experiencing excitement but also trepidation, perhaps joy but also sadness. Notice how when you widen your awareness to what is present, that you are capable of holding a multitude of paradoxical things at once. Now see if you can bring what we might call a courageous presence to what you are experiencing now. A courageous presence is a presence that allows safe harbor to whatever you may be feeling or experiencing. In particular, to allow yourself to have an open and receptive space to anything that may make you feel uncomfortable, uneasy, or brings up feelings of fear, sadness, pain, or suffering. Our first inclination for most of us is to move away from the feelings that challenge us. However, in our turning away, we miss the opportunity to receive the fruits of what it would be like to stay present to them. So see if now you could remember a time in your own individual experience where you were able to stay present to what felt uncomfortable, to what felt painful, shameful, or perhaps embarrassing. When we choose to consciously stay and not turn around, but to sit with what is true, it becomes a portal to not only a sense of deep relief, but also allows there to be expansion and freedom within us. It's important that we remember and recall these moments when we did not retreat, because this is where we have experienced hope being born. The hope and wisdom to know that if we are willing to stay and turn inwards and towards what's challenging, to not leave, we can remember that in the turning towards, there is a portal to freedom. Not only a freedom for ourselves and in our own lives, but our freedom for everyone else. It's a way for us to connect in a more authentic and deeper way with others. See, it's in our ability to connect deeply within ourselves. And when we connect deeply within ourselves, it naturally extends out into the world, to all beings everywhere, and most importantly, to our Black, Brown, and Indigenous brothers and sisters. Namaste.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you. Words and the sitting in presence is so critical at this moment. So now that Erica has led us through sort of an embodiment of the first two elements, we'd like to bring ourselves to the third element. What are we solving for? Most transformations, either in our personal lives or in our work lives, fail because everyone isn't 100% clear and everyone isn't 100% aligned on what is the problem that we're solving for. So this evening, again, in the chat box, we invite you to take a minute or two, a second or two, and let us know what you believe the priority problem is.
What do you think the problem is that we're solving for? Racism, police brutality, implicit bias, inequity. What do we see here? Holy moly, they're coming
Poverty,
fast.
equity, racism,
Oppression.
inequality, systemic racism, bias, education, systems of oppression, ignorance,
Education, hiding behind privilege, denial,
cruelty, police brutality, abuse, lack of freedom, injustice, white privilege, prison system,
Thank you, everyone.
discomfort.
Yeah, there's a lot here. We're solving a lot of problems, but we have to solve for the right one. So some of you got this, but each of these pervasive issues are symptoms and distractions from the root problem. And what is the root problem? So white supremacy can be a inflammatory word, inflammatory set of words. And some people are probably like, this is an extremist group or a hate group, and that that might be a repulsive word. Some of you may have, or you obviously, some of you knew this is what the problem is that we are here to solve. And so white supremacy, just so we're on the same page, it centers whiteness. It's not a conscious superiority, but an assumed superiority. And it, in centralizing whiteness, what is central is better, and what is better is desirable, and what is desirable is supreme, and everything else is deviant or other. So the only good news about white supremacy is that we've actually never tried to solve for this problem before. And the bad news is that we're just waking up to this now. Us white women are waking up to this now. And we could spend all day and night talking about all the things that white supremacy has its tentacles in, but we would be here until tomorrow. So just know, Black women have been writing, speaking, teaching about it for decades. Let's read the books, let's take the classes, let's do the webinars. There's a myriad of resources that all point to the source of the problem: dismantling white supremacy. Now you know what we're solving for. And once we see it, we can't unsee it. And once we see it, we can change it. And to change it, three things have to happen simultaneously and consistently. We have to own that white supremacy is within us. We have to have racial literacy, and we have to have the stamina to stay in it. So when we ask, what can I do? This is it. When people tell us, do the work, and we're like, what does the work mean? This is the work. Understand that white supremacy is within each and every single one of us, and the programming is deep. Shortest history of our country, stolen land, stolen people. So everything forward came from white supremacist air. Everything. There's nothing I say or do or act without a white supremacist lens, without the culture and conditioning of white supremacy. We also have a lot of unresolved trauma that we're acting out on in forms of defense mechanisms like white fragility or saviorism. So inner work is no joke. It takes full-time vigilance, courage, lots of different types of healing. We do have to have racial literacy, and this is one where the learning curve is steep, and we
Very
have to
steep.
move fast. So if there's something you want to act on, it's catch up now. We have to catch up on learning the real history, understanding the true building blocks of this country to see how we got here, and so we can not continue to replicate it. And again, Black women have been at the forefront. Follow them, pay them, learn from them, and for God's sake, listen to them. We've interviewed some amazing guides on our podcast if you're looking for a place to start. And I know that you know what stamina is. Do we work out for like 2 months and then say, okay, I'm done. I'm fit for life? No, it's like with anything, training for anything, a marathon, a yoga teacher training, you name it. We have to practice, 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 and fail and rest and come back stronger and bounce back faster. And every day we have to opt in. All three of these are our responsibility to practice simultaneously: inner work, racial literacy, and building stamina. As a white woman, I touch at least 5 people every day. If I'm not doing my work, I'm Amy Cooper, who will cause an evil ripple that affects everyone around her. If I'm not doing my work, I won't be seeing Black women as leaders or models. If I'm not doing my work, my white sons will operate like no matter what they do, their mess will be cleaned up. If I'm not doing my work, I'll interrupt people of color when they're speaking, which I've done a lot. If I'm not doing my work, I'll stay segregated and focused only on myself. If I'm not doing my work, I'll pay my cleaning lady as little as possible. If I'm not doing my work, I'll feel everything is owed to me. If I'm not doing my work, I'll think looting is the problem. If I'm not doing my work, I'll think I know what is best for women of color in the workplace. If I'm not doing my work, I will not be brought to tears by the murder of Black men and women by police officers. If I'm not doing my work, I'll keep paying Jeff Bezos instead of seeking out a Black-owned bookstore. We've listed links in the chat. If I'm not doing my work, I am as dangerous as Amy Cooper.
Indeed. Indeed. So now we arrive at the next element, the fourth element, which is around consistent commitment and execution. Consistent commitment and execution as a lifestyle. And this one's all you, boo.
Yes. We love our habits and structures.
Mm-hmm.
We have motivation, we have hope. We know what the problem we're solving for is. And now we need the habits and structures to support that. Healthy habits are the daily things we do to support our motivation and hope every day, and structures support our habits. We need discipline and clarity around our habits and around the structures that are going to support them. And P.S., we know how to do this. We've done this with many other aspects of our life. If the habit is exercise, the structure is the gym. If my habit is reading a book by a Black author every day, the structure is a book club. If my habit is examining my white supremacy, structure is doing Layla Sah's workbook, Me and White Supremacy. Also, as a note, please know that anything I'm telling you or I'm referencing or I'm saying is through my lens, which, as you know, comes from white supremacist cultural conditioning. So you have agency. You can Google all of these things. They're plentiful, and do all of them. Whatever you come across, the more voices we hear, the better. The moral of the habits story is, though, every day, no matter what. Every day, no matter what. So just, as a white woman, one of the reasons why I wanted to create the podcast was because I really wanted more white women to join into the conversation and actually see that anti-racism practices were way much more than reading books and making donations. So now we invite you to get to work. Take out a piece of paper if you'd like. We're going to write our opt-in statement. So we're going to do the 1 to 2 habits or structures that we're going to commit to and lean on daily. And I'm going to write, I, Kelly Croce Sorg, opt in to ... So I, Kelly Croce Sorg, opt in to meditate with a meditation teacher of color every day. I, Kelly Croce Sorg, opt in to commit to a year-long coaching program at the Racism Recovery Center. And then please write them in the chat when you know them. You have a couple habits of your own, but you can look through the chat and pick up some other good ideas. We can all learn from each other. That's the best part. And you have lots of places to start. Working on yourself, working in your family, working in your place of business, school. I opt in to commit to an anti-racism book club. Love it. Yeah, there's communities of practice, there's courageous conversation, there's, everything from meditation and yoga with justice aspects.
Putting myself in places where I am the only.
Oh, The Great Unlearn. Rachel Cargill's The Great Unlearn. Love it. Introduce my daughter to Black authors. White Supremacy Book Club. Me and White Supremacy Book Club. Nicole Cardoza's Daily Anti-Racism Emails. Nice. Such great stuff here, everybody. So if you're looking for ideas, there's a lot of stuff here. Reading White Fragility.
And the thing I would offer, that we would offer, is pick one thing and do it consistently. Because we'll talk about the fact that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And historically, candidly, this is where white women have dropped the ball. Because when the headlines fade, when the news cycle is no longer talking about this, it's the consistency of your habit. It is the consistency of your structures that will ensure that you stay focused on dismantling white supremacy. And so that brings us to our last and final 5th element of personal transformation, which is around building community. And that's why we're here today, to opt in to build a community. Because I'm lucky. Community is an inherent part of my cultural structure. It is very much what drove me, supported me in not only my survival, but also bridged me always to my joy. And so today, this is the community that you're creating so that you can support each other, learn from each other. There's so many fabulous ideas and examples in the thread.
I'm not seeing nearly enough listen to the opt-in podcast. I'm assuming all 648 of you have listened to all 23 episodes. Just checking. I got it all caps. Thank you. As my bestie Aurora says, nothing changes if nothing changes. And that's where community comes in. Community is the glue. It's the goal. You may even have more than one community, which is beautiful. Community is important because it keeps me accountable when I lose my way. And I cannot do this alone, and I don't want to.
So in summary, We appreciate you opting in today. Again, this is not a sprint. It is a marathon. And what we've offered are 4 elements of transformation that you personalize for you. You personalize it based on where you are in this journey, because you clarify your motivation, you define what your hope is, you ensure that you have habits and practices, and you stay and connect within a clear community of support. That's going to, quite frankly, ensure that you stay accountable, because this accountability is yours. And so we'll end by saying that it's through this accountability that you will wake up to your indifference, so that you can wake up to your humanity, so that you can stop dehumanizing yourself and others. And that hopefully you let this pain, the pain that you're experiencing, the pain that Black and brown bodies have experienced and endured for centuries, that we let the pain blossom into the greatest story of love, sacred rebellion, and transformation.
Aura and I thank you for being here this evening. And if there's one action item you take away, it's to invite a friend to join us along in the journey.
So with that, we'll ask our beautiful friend, Reverend Retta, to come back and close this sacred space. And we look forward to being in touch with you. Opt in to the transformation, friends. Much peace,
love.
much peace, much love. Thank you.
Blessings, blessings. And so as we prepare to end this call, I invite each one of us, wherever we are, to take a nice deep breath. Take a deep breath. And breathe in the perfume of possibility in this moment. I invite each one of us to wrap our hearts around what is possible. Wrap our hearts around the places within us that are curious, or that got triggered, or that is feeling deep shame and sadness and may be having a hard time listening beyond those feelings. Wrap your heart around whatever you're feeling in this moment, and invite you to breathe into love. Breathe into the possibility that love in action can actually be a way that we live as a human race. Just in this second, I just want you to remember or to connect to a dream, a prayer that has been in existence since the beginning of time, that we have our being in love, that we lean into love, that we sing about love, that we ground in love, that we fight on behalf of love, fight with love on behalf of love for sacred justice for all of us. And so with deep breath, with ourselves grounded on this sacred land, having taken in amazing concepts, practical things to do, philosophy, theology, we walk away nourished and nurtured as we continue this journey towards sacred justice. You are blessed. I want you to hear that from this Black woman. I'm sharing with you, I'm charging you to remember to take care of yourself, to love yourself in the places where it may be hard to love yourself, because we need you. We need each one of you in this journey forward. Nothing you've done or said needs to get in the way. Nothing. You are love. We are one sisterhood. We are one human race. And so we leave this call, I hope, with that on your heart and in your minds, on your spirits. We are one, and we're going to love each other into the justice we're dreaming of. This is my prayer in this moment. Each one of you be blessed. In the name of all that is. Amen.
And so it is, Rev.
And so it is.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be
Amen.
back in touch.
Much love. Good night.